like thinking about it like that, because it does feel like, yeah, seeds have been germinating and now they're blooming. My name is Libita Sibungu and I'm a multidisciplinary artist and I live and work in Cornwall. I suppose this is what has been created over the last few years, is what I call an unruly relational living archive. And I suppose, yeah, growing up here, I always had a big dream of showing in Newlyn Art Gallery one day. One day, imagine having an exhibition here. And yeah, so that's kind of beautiful, I think, for my younger self. You know, granted I'm at the exchange site, but it's important to kind of remember those things, you know, these journeys and dreams. So it feels very poetic, beautiful, correct, right? That this is the time that I'm showing here, you know. I think you know, my mum and dad met at the Tolkien pub here. I grew up in a very white working class environment, you know, in Cornwall, in West Penwith, so in this fishing village, and you know, it was very different back then. So there's, you know, something of my experiences, you know, I speak about my personal familial history, and that is a route in to speak about wider cosmologies and politics and histories, and then also to open up a space of other imaginaries and futures. So yeah, as a, you know, mixed race person with Namibian, Zambezi heritage, and then on the other side my Cornish and, you know, British heritage, I think it's important that I speak to that, you know, of being in and amongst all these materials and thinking about shifting shorelines and this kind of in-betweenness, or maybe the multiplicity of my experience that many other people experience. And in particular in Cornwall, you know, I'm really interested in African diasporic experiences here, our history, Black British history being all of our history. And that's, you know, that's of course my embodied experience. The place that I'm in now, and also one of the places where I have roots and where I come from, to think about that vug, you know, that cavernous crystallized space within a rock that perhaps once had a fossil in there. But you know, it tells its own story. So I feel like that's kind of the holding space that speaks to ZED Love and speaks about this intergenerational journey of shape-shifting, of becoming. Yeah, so deep recovery into in-living memory into ZED Love, which I kind of love. It feels like something growing up and out. So ZED Love was in my notes, and it's the name of an ancestor that I dreamt. So it's not literally an ancestor I know of, but it was a type of birthing ancestral experience that felt so deep and meaningful that when I woke up, I felt a deep unblocking, a deep healing. So that's the energy that I wanted this show to really hold. Yeah, so that's where it comes from. You know, one of my earliest memories and photos is of me on Newlyn Green with my mum, and she's teaching me how to make rag rugs, you know, and I'm probably, like 2 or 3, and she's sewing rag rugs and I'm sitting next to her handing her the pieces. So I suppose there's something about this place that's really, I don't know, really gets me. It's like important, back to that kind of creative language, I guess, and being in a place, you know, and also feeling outside of a place. You know, Cornwall's very complicated for me. It's kind of strange to you know, especially in the 80s, when I was growing up here, late 80s into the 90s, you know, there's this sense of belonging, being in a place, being in a family, being in a community, and then at the same time unbelonging, you know, being told, you know, you're not from here, where are you from? Never being placed with my family when I was with my family, you know, because they're white. So as a child, that kind of shapes you, you know, that shapes. So my relationship with Cornwall was complicated because of that, you know. But there's something about being in nature and certain places that really land me, and I feel right at home, this being one of them. Coming and settling, resettling back in West Penwith and Cornwall was a type of orientation around me as a mother, and then thinking about what creative practice is for me, was for me then, and that kind of shift of feeling a need to be in community, you know, after being separated in many ways. So yeah, I think that need and that reorientation led to me really realizing that I need to bring some people together. So that project, Deep Recovery, was really one of the seedlings that started to sprout, which was this kind of what I called at the time a sonic fragment, which was about a 12-minute audio sound piece, and then a series of photographs, but very small. So I got Arts Council funding, which was basically to keep growing this body of research, thinking about movement histories and futures, literally going out into the landscape, bringing up questions and thinking about the materiality as memory, so collecting materials from the earth, from the land, very kind of DIY field recordings. Yes, so I suppose my entry into becoming a creative associate with Arts University Plymouth came from working with an amazing local producer, Liz Howell, on my earlier project, Deep Recovery, which was with Loughborough University. And yeah, that was kind of the second time working with a producer, and it really grounded me. It was so important in me developing a practice of working with others and that being facilitated so then I could do the creative bit. The key works that I have made there are a series of large-scale photograms, a very experimental process which has been exposing them with light and sound simultaneously. And yeah, that's been really supported by Dave Simons, who is on the photography department there and technician. And he's really facilitated my thinking and dreaming around these photographs. And yeah, thanks to him, we figured out a way to have a kind of dry area in the film studio because we were working so big. And because the works were so big, we also were working with animal troughs to put all the chemicals in. Lorna Simpson also came in and assisted me when we were making the final series. And also two students, Mal and Millie, came in and assisted as well. So it was a real 4-person job when we were developing. And then Liz introduced me to Hannah Rose, who is also a producer, curator, and access support worker. And a part of that was considering mentorship. And so then through Hannah, she suggested Helen Cammack. So yeah, amazing artist, mentor. Helen Cammack is who has been supporting me also through this exhibition making. There is a wonderful creative text that Helen has written that brings our conversations and experiences together. Really beautiful and poetic and expansive. So yeah, there will be a series of drawings. Initially I thought it would be like 3 to 5, they've grown into 15. So again, blooming. I like these words, blooming and bursting. I feel like the whole exhibition is continually blooming and bursting and coalescing and converging and exploding. So the drawings are photographs initially from these workshops and these gatherings around West Penwith. Then I've just kind of worked over them, so with watercolours and inks and Tipp-Ex and pen. To, I guess, speak to these invisible energies. So these sites may be considered sacred. Some of them connect to granite specifically. Some of them are, burial sites. And, there's a lot of joy in them. I think there's something happening about shelter, about fugitive experiences. And then that kind of, and there's a playfulness. I feel there's, it came out a lot more kind of Afrofuturist than I was imagining, actually. It just started to emerge. And I love that about them. And then that then feeds in, I think, to these other bodies of work within the show, which is a series of photograms that stand very tall. So they are this kind of, I don't know, like maybe bassier, underground realm of the exhibition, this other time. So I'm always thinking about these kind of multiple bodies, I'm thinking about the multiracial experience. I'm thinking about veins and cracks within rocks and where different things pull to move beyond systems of categorization that come from colonial thought systems. When I was making the photograms, I was kind of, a part of it was very intuitive. So because it was a big experimental process at the size of this table, it meant that the way that I was holding the light to expose, I was doing in relation to my body. So what is this photogram speaking to? Which particular archive or person is this a devotion to, or devotional practice? And I was holding them within my body. And then I was holding the light in the place where I was kind of imagining I wanted the shadows and the light to shoot. And then at the same time, the person that was assisting me, Lorna, was pressing play on a certain frequency that I'd asked to be played. So when I was hearing and feeling that low vibration, like in the body, let's say like 70 hertz, then it was kind of a short meditation on this is heart. And I'd hold the light there and then flash it. So because on these movements, these gatherings where we're moving through the landscape, sound is then present as this kind of way to recall a memory. I really like this almost like ready-made dialogue, finding voices within the environment, not so performative, and the seat that's at the center of this kind of bassy space, let's say, something between a votive deposit and a techno-fossil. The circular seat then has two very big sub-speakers in it. So actually, really, that circular seat is becoming a speaker in itself, a speaker box. So Neil Rose, essential to the making of this sound. So he's really designed the sound. I've given him parts from my archive, and then I've composed these vocal parts, but he's created this whole sound design, and we've been working on it together. So, yeah, these cyanotypes, there's huge, big pieces that I've made, which I suppose feel like veils. And they've been, exposed with light, so sunlight in Windhoek, Namibia, are quite different for me in working with fabric, working with textiles. And it's kind of this patchwork. I'm thinking about these lost pages. And I suppose there's a decision, there's a tonal decision and a feeling about how they've been composed and have come together. And working with Sam Brown-Acanti on that, who's been sewing, he's a fashion designer, so been learning a lot about textiles and that material actually, which has been very new for me. So as a pair, they're called Wild Seed, and that is an ode to Octavia E. Butler, who wrote the book Wild Seed. Also the lead character, the protagonist within that first book, Anyanwu, who features quite a lot, the energy of Anyanwu within the exhibition. And I think really she is all of our mothers. So thinking about the oldest, the first mother that birthed all of us. So yeah, that feels really important, this idea of a wild seed or many wild seeds finding a place and rooting and growing. I'm curious. I think we all bring our own stories and experiences into any room that we go into, and the same with a gallery. So it's completely open to an interpretation. But I think there's something spiritual happening in the show. I think there's something about making visible the invisible whilst holding opacity. So there's some things that might feel quite clear or distinct, or you might look at the cyanotypes and recognize an object within it and think, oh, that's familiar. But then the way I think they've become abstracted and kind of blown apart, it becomes something unusual. And I'm very open for people to see what they see within that and to feel what they feel. So I feel like the whole exhibition is this circuit, this feedback loop that keeps feeding into itself, but growing these other gnarly, weird roots and rocks. The importance of women of colour today in the landscape. I think many of us have experienced being in the landscape and being the only black or brown or person of colour in these spaces. I grew up here, I live here, and I have friends who are women of colour, people of colour, black and brown people. So even if we are that 2%, we are here, right? And then if we look into archives and if we look into histories, we see that we've been here actually a very long time. So for me, I'm making something audible and visible. So yeah, when I come to the studio, I generally put the kettle on, put the music on. So just coming out of the winter, so the fire is part of my little ritual, getting the fire going. I'll have a particular song or album that I'm into, so that's normally me setting the tone. And depending on what I've got going on, the day will flow from there. My beautiful studio is Prior Venice Street, so these are Prior Venice studios. And so, yeah, we're in Newlyn. And yeah, it's a beautiful walk. I suppose if I'm in the week, it will be dropping off my son to school, and then it's a really nice walk down through Newlyn and then up to the studio. And obviously we're right on the sea here, so I really enjoy that little walk. And yeah, I love Newlyn, it's this working fishing village. I always say it's kind of like this little corner that's got loads of different layers of people and cultures and classes, one on top of each other in this very small kind of little corner. So I think there's something interesting about how the work, the art will continue to play inside of people as they leave and carry on about their day.